Welcome to the first webinar of this series, Recoverable Grants, Recycling Philanthropic Capital to Maximize Impact. We have two additional webinars within this series coming up in the next 2 weeks, one on catalytic capital intermediation and another one on bridge financing. Your registration for today's webinar has signed you up for both of these webinars as well, so we'll be very excited to welcome you for those sessions as well. My name is Rasika Parkhi. It's been a real joy to put this series together with Sharon Murray and the rest of the ReFED team. Both of the organizations were founded by some of the same people, based on some of the same values, and it's been a pleasure to continue this collaboration. This webinar series aims to really continue the education and innovation required to unlock capital for impact. Through each session, we aim to connect funders with real opportunities to move capital towards impactful solutions, to reduce the large amount of food that is going to waste all across our food system in the US and globally. Today, we'll look at the role of recoverable grants as a flexible vehicle that can help funders stretch their dollars further to help food waste innovators maximize their impact. At CapShift, we empower financial institutions and their clients to activate capital towards social and environmental change. We leverage our technology platform and industry expertise to work with funders and partners through every step of the investment process. Think discovering impact investment opportunities to portfolio advisory and then post-investment and grant reporting and monitoring processes. Our clients include over 45 private wealth and charitable institutions. This year, we celebrated a critical milestone of having mobilized over $1 billion, supporting solutions across the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development thematic areas. I've had the pleasure to work with our partner ReFED, which is a US-based nonprofit that's working to catalyze the food system to stop wasting food. Their work includes supporting funders and innovators to help deploy capital strategically and confidently into high-impact food waste solutions. They do this through their Food Waste Funder Circle, tailored advisory support, and events just like this one. If you're interested in learning more about how they can support your giving, your investment strategy, they would very much welcome your outreach. We will share contact information in the chat, and you will find it towards the end of this webinar as well. Before we jump into the subject matter, would like to get everyone's attention to the disclosure slide. Neither CapShift nor ReFED are recommending any investment or recoverable grant that we speak of today, or any offerings that come across this webinar series. This conversation is not a recommendation or of any products or services from either of our organizations. We are thrilled to be joined by leaders who are using recoverable grants to solve some of the most critical financing gaps across food waste, agriculture, and climate solutions. Here's how this session will go. I will spend some time with you introducing recoverable grants as a highly catalytic funding tool. I will be referring to them as RGs or recoverable grants throughout this conversation. Then we'll hear case studies from Ambassador Ertrin Cousin of Food Systems for the Future, Christina Zardo of Food Cycle Science, and Joe Marini of Mothership Materials. Each of them will share their unique perspectives and examples of recoverable grants right in action. Then we'll bring everybody back for a Q&A session. So please do continue to enter your questions as they come to you in the Q&A function in Zoom. Before we dive deep and really speak about recoverable grants, I wanted to set some context on the scale of philanthropic capital that's out there. Today, over $1.5 trillion sit in philanthropic assets globally, largely concentrated across US and Europe. Most of this capital is housed at private foundations and donor-advised funds, which I believe many of you are representing here today on this call. 150 billion of these assets are deployed or granted out each year. You can see how that is a very small subset of the larger assets that are sitting within these pools. On the right, you will see typical pathways or tools that are used to deploy these assets. Let's review them one by one. We all know traditional grants fairly well. Then there are certain types of investments that charitable funders can make within IRS guidelines that we call program-related investments. I'm certain a lot of you have used this within your portfolios. And then finally, there's recoverable grants, which is a fairly new tool that we will be spending a lot of our time on today. Each of these tools Each of the tools most used to deploy capital historically come with their own limitations. Traditional grants, for example, do not allow donors to retain the corpus of capital. Once you make a grant, the capital is out the door. It's not meant to be received back. Program-related investments have a number of requirements and compliance guidelines denoted by the IRS that funders need to comply with in order to maintain their charitable status. And I'm thinking largely for sort of donor-advised funds, private foundations, who are overseen by a lot of these guidelines. Financial and legal due diligence, ongoing monitoring of these investments, which are often sort of longer term, think 10 years, 12 years, may also not be suitable for a number of charitable organizations or asset owners, which run on sort of smaller teams. These limitations elevate key risks and roadblocks to unlocking a lot of philanthropic capital that is sitting within these organizations. Recoverable grants may actually be one of the most innovative tools that are bridging some of these critical gaps. You can see here that recoverable grants are a form of charitable giving, which once granted out has the potential to be recovered if underlying nonprofits or beneficiaries meet certain predefined impact financial programmatic goals. A recoverable grant is not a loan or investment. It can be highly mission aligned, and it is a lot easier to execute compared to traditional investment structures. Recoverable grants are an ideal tool for donor-advised funds and private foundations that typically have a lot of limitations on the way they're able to deploy capital. And this is what I've been referring to sort of as IRS guidelines over the past few points. Other mission-aligned, mission-motivated funders, such as family offices, may also very much readily use this tool within their larger portfolio of impact investments and grants. Across funder types, I believe recoverable grants may be a great tool if you align with a certain key criteria. Think you're new to grant making and are seeking a tool that also preserves your capital corpus. If you deem traditional investments as unsustainable, or if you're motivated to add a certain patient or catalytic form of capital within your larger portfolio of investments. Moving ahead, who can receive recoverable grants? For charitable funders governed by IRS guidelines, making recoverable grants to US-based 501(c)(3)s is the easiest pathway to unlock this capital tool. If funders wish to make recoverable grants to either a for-profit entity or a not-profit housed outside the US, partnering with a mission-aligned intermediary may be the easiest pathway to use a recoverable grant. If this is of interest, if this is something you see using in your portfolio, please do join us in our Catalytic Capital Intermediation webinar on Monday, the 10th of November, which is when we will dig a little bit deeper on these intermediation tools. The next and most critical thing to really understand with the recoverable grants that you may be thinking of is the recovery model that beneficiaries will use to bring capital back to the donors after they make recoverable grants. These three are by no means the only pathways for recovery, but over CapShift sort of 5 odd years of facilitating recoverable grants, these are the most typical structures we've seen. Firstly, your recoverable grant can help bridge a critical financing gap and keep impact going while beneficiaries await other forms of capital. Think, for example, a humanitarian services organization that has used recoverable grant capital to quickly provide health and hygiene services in areas that are experiencing armed conflict globally. Once government and multilateral aid starts materializing, the beneficiary will be able to recover capital back to recoverable grant donors. We will also be diving much deeper into this bridge financing as a tool for catalytic capital on our webinar on the 17th November within this series. Secondly, nonprofits are not in the position to raise sort of growth equity like capital that for-profit structures are able to. So in the absence of growth equity like capital for nonprofits, recoverable grants can help rapidly scale successful programs, grow teams, or help beneficiaries invest in replicating models that they've already seen be successful. I'll give you an example. A land conservation organization has used recoverable grants in the past to quickly purchase ecologically significant lands that are under the threat of sort of being under commercial use. They bring these lands under easements and sell it to impact-minded buyers. The revenue generated from sale of land will then be used to recover capital back to donors who have now helped secure this land rapidly within a conservation easement. Finally, and one of my favorite sort of pathways for recoverable grants is that it's a great tool to support moonshot innovation and pilot new solutions to existing problems. For example, a nonprofit that raises recoverable grants to provide low-cost loans to smallholder farmers from BIPOC communities with the goal to support them on their journey to land ownership and regenerative farming. These systemic shifts in patterns of land ownership require a lot of low-cost patient capital to succeed and scale and really build a case for replication in the future. The final step in reviewing a recoverable grant that you might be making is to review the terms. There's no really the right set of terms or the best set of terms, but I want to highlight a few top-line questions you should be asking the beneficiaries you're aiming to work with before you finalize recoverable grants. Think minimum grant size that the nonprofit or the beneficiary is ready to accept, fees associated with recoverable grants, the timing or term of the recoverable grant post which a recovery may be expected, as well as the amount and timing of when recovery will come back. I've given a few examples of what these terms have looked like in RGs that we facilitated in the past. Like I said, these are not by any means standard terms or the best terms for recoverable grants. Terms you will see are usually most in alignment with the underlying model or the underlying use of proceeds that an organization aims to use recoverable grants for, sorry. Now that we've gone through the basics, allow me to give you a quick example in action of how recoverable grants may be used. Smallholder farmers, as we all understand, often face timing gaps between when they need capital to purchase inputs like seeds, fertilizers, and when they begin earning revenue from the sale of farm produce. A zero-interest recoverable grant, for example, made to a farmer in year one, can be applied to purchase produce as well as sow, harvest, and sell the yield at the end of the cultivation cycle, say around next year. Proceeds from this sale will help return the donor's capital in year two, which the donor may then use to again serve or support other impactful ventures. Here, the donor was not only able to recycle capital back and put it to work again through impactful solutions, but the farmer was also able to receive access to low-cost capital, where the alternative might have been either extremely high interest debt or most realistically access to no capital, given collateral limitations so common across smallholder farmers across the world. Before I wrap up my segment of this webinar, I do want to highlight some key benefits and risks that you should keep in mind before adding this tool to your portfolio. Recoverable grants, as I've discussed, provide capital to high-impact nonprofits to take risks, scale impact, and innovate to solve entrenched problems within society and the climate. Recoverable grants serve to de-risk technologies and early-stage products and projects that have the potential to pool in large amounts of either catalytic or traditional capital. The process of making and monitoring recoverable grants is often less onerous compared to investments. And finally, recoverable grants are typically accessible to donors at much smaller checks, making it a lot more accessible to folks who are new to recoverable grants or want to cut sort of smaller checks. On the other hand, recoverable grants only work where beneficiaries have a clear recovery model, one of the three options we discussed earlier, or a different model. The risks of misalignment and high fees also arise when you're working with sort of intermediary structures, which I alluded to a little earlier. Tracking of recoverable grants progress against impact and financial goals, which really measures the success of a recoverable grant, takes resources and time. And finally, recovery of these grants is not certain, and it cannot be enforced as in the case of some or most of the investment products, think debt. With this context, I'll say two final things. I hope this has given you enough food for thought, pun very much intended, to consider recoverable grants as a part of your catalytic capital strategies. You will hear a lot more about the impact potential of recoverable grants and real deep case studies of impact through a lot of the panelists that will follow my speaking today. I will now hand over the spotlight to Ambassador Erthrin, who will walk us through the work of food systems for the future. Erthrin, I have your slides up. Please do guide me on how you'd like me to proceed.
Thank you very much, Vasika, and good morning to everyone from the San Francisco airport as I speak to you this morning. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Food Systems for the Future and our Good Food Opportunity Fund. Food Systems for the Future is a 501c3 that performs advocacy, policy, partnerships, and works with businesses to support the scale up of the access to affordable, nutritious food. We have a sister organization, the FSF Ventures, which is a for-profit organization that would be delighted to provide more information about if there's anyone who's interested. But today I want to spend my time talking about the capital that we provide to startup businesses that will support their ability to scale. If Rasika, if you can go to the next slide. The challenge, as some of you or many of you may know, is that as we speak today, 40 million Americans lack affordable access to nutritious food. And we are seeing this play out in the challenge that so many of our neighbors are experiencing as we sit here right now with the loss of SNAP benefits. But what is not talked about is the impact of the loss of those SNAP benefits on grocery retailers, for example, that are operating in areas where in communities that would otherwise be food deserts, but for their continued support of those communities. And those are the types of businesses that we see as the potential for building that availability and affordability and overcoming the hurdles for so many Americans. What we know is the reason you see food and agriculture businesses that lack access to capital in those early stages is that missing middle of pre-seed. And because too often traditional lenders seek the collateral, of course, for proven cash flows, and the early seed investments that many of these enterprises are able to access does not provide the support that is necessary for them to move beyond that initial startup phase and into a scaling phase. Next slide, please. And that is where we come in. By creating a platform that is the Good Food Opportunity Fund that can provide the capital to the businesses that we work with through the Food Systems for the Future Institute, providing them with that advocacy, policy, and business development support. Having capital ready to ensure that they have the ability to scale helps us move beyond just talking about what is possible to helping those businesses that are committed to supporting the food system move forward. So it aligns the incentives of the commitment for impacting access to affordable, nutritious food, reducing the waste in our food system with the capital that is necessary to achieve those goals. And what is exciting is that as we provide through this platform the capital to the businesses and monitor and support and not just monitor, but support their ability to achieve their growth goals. They make the repayments that are necessary to the platform, the Good Food Opportunity platform, giving us the ability to re-grant and recycle to others. Next slide, please, Rasika. So our commitment is to increasing access to affordable, nutritious food for more Americans through the deployment of this capital, the support for the partnerships, the acceleration through business development of the enterprises that moves us beyond, as I said, just talking about the what is possible to actually creating the businesses that move us beyond just the programs of access to affordable, nutritious food by the 45 million Americans who are affected by the challenges of a broken food system. And our goal is to increase that access over the next 5 years by 10%, and with your help, we can do that. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about here? This platform will allow us to deploy not the small grants that start the businesses, because they're moving in that direction. When we talk about the processing companies, the new transport companies that will allow for regional distribution, the facilities that support the retail access to nutritious food in underserved communities across the country. What they need is capital to keep to scale. And that is why we are looking to provide them with $250 to $1 million over that 36-month period, where we will work with them to help them move to that phase where they can become commercially operational and develop the EBITDA that will give them a pathway to resilience and to growth. Next slide, please. Why I get excited with the investment strategy that we have for the Good Food Opportunity Fund. And I'm so delighted to be with you here today in this discussion, is because everything we do, every enterprise that we support, is in the service of reducing waste and loss across our food system. As an example, we have one of the companies in our pipeline is a produce recovery company that upcycles recovered produce that would otherwise be either go into the landfill or be plowed under by farmers, and instead becomes nutritious full meals that can be distributed to food banks or sold or provided to retailers for sale at a Good Samaritan price, making that affordable, nutritious food more affordable and available, while at the same time reducing waste in the food system. These are the kind of businesses I look forward to having the opportunity to tell you more about, that we have been working with them to provide that ecosystem support, that partnership and advocacy support. But what we've been missing is the capital to actually move them forward. I'll give you one more example, and that is on the retail side. The FSF, the Institute, has worked with retailers across the country who have remained in areas where others have closed stores or declined to open. What we've seen this year is that 5 of those stores have been forced to close. And as we've spoken to them in this situation where we are today, with the reduction in SNAP benefits, or the elimination of SNAP benefits, we don't know which one it is yet. But what we do know is we're missing those first of the month sales. And though the potential of those stores to stay open is diminishing day by day, the funds that we would provide through our platform would allow for the grants for them to continue to operate during this challenging period, ensuring the jobs maintained, the access to affordable, nutritious food in those communities continues to go forward, and that we reduce the amount of food loss and waste because those stores don't suffer from the shrink of lack of access to customers to purchase the food. So this is the type of capital that we believe that we're creating a new facility that will move us beyond just talking to actually achieving. Next slide. The and I've talked about this being catalytic, bridging between philanthropy and private capital, as well as commercial capital. We will revolve that capital over the 5-year period before returning it back to the donor. That with a goal of returning at least 80% of all the capital to the donors, but our true goal is returning 100%, but it's recoverable, so that we can't guarantee. Our capital is outcomes linked. Everything we do is about reducing waste and supporting the access to more affordable and nutritious food. And what is exciting to me as I sit here with you today is that it prioritizes businesses operating in underrepresented communities, both rural and in urban areas, and those founders that too often don't have access to that next level of capital if they were able to get their doors open in the first place. And the work that we're doing, the team that we have in place, helps safeguard the capital that you provide to us, overcoming that challenge of a system that does not meet your needs or your risk tolerance. Next slide, please. The impacts are, you will have access to these slides. There's a lot of data on these slides, and I apologize, but we have metrics in place and the team in place to support that metrics. You ask why us? Because we have developed the tools for recognizing what is the win that will make a difference for the entrepreneurs, but more importantly for the communities that lack access to affordable, nutritious food, and that win of reducing waste. And so we have that team available with the tools that we've worked on over the last 3 years to support the measurement of baselines, and then the ongoing activities to provide transparency to all of our donors on where their dollars go, then the impact they are delivering. Next slide, please. And why FSF? Why the Good Food Opportunity Fund? Because we are the right team to make this happen. I've spent my entire career working to address access to affordable, nutritious food, both domestically and internationally. But as people say, Earthrens, surround yourself with people who know money. And we have the former president of Rabobank USA, and Roberto Velarde, who has spent 25 years in the VC and private equity community and knows what businesses need to be capable of scale. But on that side of ensuring that we're providing the transparency and the data to the donors who support us, we have 2 seasoned actors, Ariel Thompson and Zachary Smith. But then we have the nutrition lead, Jen Kelly, who works, next slide, please, with our nutrition team of leaders who can ensure that when we say we will move the needle on affordability and availability, we have the credibility of leaders who have spent their entire careers working in this space. So with that, as I said, I'm delighted by this opportunity to be here with you today. I can tell you a bit that our platform, our goal is to have a $20 million platform that we deploy and recycle over a 5-year period with a potential extension to 7 years. As I noted, our cohort weighted target is 80% with a goal of recovery of up to 100% to our donor participants. Next slide, please. This is a repeat of where we would place our capital. Again, you will have access to these slides, but as you can see, our work in these communities has given us the ability to develop ambitious goals that we believe that with additional capital, we can begin to achieve. Next slide, please. So the value proposition for you as donors is the converting that philanthropic dollar into a working dollar for moving beyond just programs that address the challenges of food waste and loss, but into enterprises that are resilient and capable of delivering outcomes that provide the answers that we need, not just for today's problems, but ensuring that we have solutions for tomorrow's issues. We have a vetted pipeline that of companies that have come to trust us because of the work that we do with them in business operations and advocacy. And as they look to solving their problems, they see us as the answer, as a good partner that they can trust in the growth of their enterprises, that has a commitment that is equal to their own in their success and the success of the communities that they serve. What makes us, I'm excited about as well, is that we are not, our books are open, our successes, our partners are, and the work that we perform is well documented on a regular basis because we do regular webinars and provide published materials for the outcomes that we want to deliver. So to wrap this up, I'm hopeful that as you listen today, you will want to hear more and schedule an appointment to meet with the team so we can tell you more. And we are looking forward to working with as many of you as possible because the challenges will not wait for us to identify the more traditional capital. We need to do it to work differently if we want different outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ertharin. Passing the mic on to Christina.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. So, hello everyone. I'm Christina Zardo. I'm with Food Cycle Science, and we are a past recipient of a Recoverable grant from ReFED. So today I'll share our journey through that lens, how Recoverable Capital helped us scale our impact and unlock our next phase of growth. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian clean technology company. We make on-site and at-home food waste recycling equipment. We started in 2011 with larger commercial food waste recycling systems, but then we saw a clear gap for households and small food waste generators. So we engineered a compact device to meet that need. And today we're best known for that line of products, which is called the Food Cycler. The picture here that you see is our flagship product. Now, this machine is a small countertop unit. It grinds and dehydrates your kitchen food scraps. The process is really simple. You fill a bucket with wet, smelly food waste. You place it into the machine, press start. A cycle takes between 4 and 8 hours. uses very little electricity, but it reduces your food waste by roughly 90% and eliminates bacteria and foodborne pathogen. What you're left with at the end is a dry, odorless, and stable feedstock for soils or for composting. Ultimately, it's empowering people to take what was otherwise landfill-bound food waste and return those nutrients into the earth. We operate three main verticals: our consumer, retail, and e-commerce, our commercial systems for businesses like restaurants, and our municipal division. The municipal model specifically grew from a simple insight, basically that this is not just a neat little kitchen gadget. It's actually a really powerful tool for achieving food waste diversion at scale. And this is really important for municipalities, as we learned, because food waste in our trash burdens our collection systems, our landfills, the environment, and ultimately taxpayers. So we launched a municipal division here in Canada in 2020 with the idea that our technology could help them divert household food waste. We landed our first partner in year one, then roughly 30 more the following year. And by the time we were approaching 50 municipal partnerships, we knew we were onto something and looking to expand. So naturally for us, that's when we started looking south of the border into the US market. And here, the food waste problem is urgent and access constrained. So food waste is the #1 material entering landfills. Landfill gas is 45 to 60% methane, and the EPA suggests diversion could reduce methane generation by roughly 1/3. However, only about 11% of US households have access to a curbside or drop-off food scraps program, and this is heavily concentrated in just 5 states. Facility access is also really thin. What I mean by that is that there simply aren't enough composting or anaerobic digestion facilities to handle the amount of food waste being generated by American households. And building centralized infrastructure like this can take decades, it can take millions of dollars. So when we learned about this, we knew this was exactly the gap that decentralized tools like the food cycler could help fill. But we were a small, fast-growing company, and we needed a plan. So that led us to applying for ReFED's Catalytic Grant Fund, which is designed to de-risk and scale high-impact solutions to food waste. We were lucky enough to be selected. And through this grant, we received $100,000 to pilot our municipal model in the US. The grant period was from April 2023 to April 2025, so 2-year period. During that time, we reported quarterly, and then at the end, we provided a final impact and financial report. The repayments were in 2 installments of $50,000 in October 24 and April 1st, 2025. So when we got this Recoverable grant, we aimed every dollar at friction for entering this market. We hired US business development, we engaged local contractors, dedicated our internal time to pilots, and made our units more accessible through subsidies and donations. We covered travel and training for program implementation, and we built repeatable playbooks with really simple data systems where our outcomes could be verified. So these investments kind of let us expand into 6 states through direct municipal partnerships in that period. And we also secured strategic partnerships with 2 major waste haulers in Casella and Waste Connections, which opened our reach across their service areas in 15 more states. So our programs are now helping thousands of households keep their food waste out of landfills in the USA. So at the time that we applied for the ReFED grant, we were in a really high growth phase and not ready to raise equity. We were looking for non-dilutive growth funding, a way to de-risk the exploration of a new market, and the ability to move fast, but with accountability. ReFED support also, of course, offered an expanded network, and it also gave us sort of a third-party validation that built confidence with our prospects. Further to that, the structure also signaled disciplined traction to future funders. So not only did the Recoverable grant help attract new partners and visibility, it also helped attract additional private capital. In June 24, we secured a strategic investment from Power Sustainable Leos. They're a growth investor that typically backs scale-ready companies and writes $25 to $50 million checks. So this was essentially the catalytic pathway in action. Charitable dollars de-risk early scale, and then commercial capital helps accelerate what works. So we're now focused on execution and scale. I think the takeaways here are, when it comes to food waste, infrastructure and centralized systems are essential, but they take so much time and so much money. There are innovations available today that can reduce volume and methane now and create repeatable, scalable impact. So recoverable grants bridge the go-to-market gap, they align incentives, and then those charitable dollars can be recycled into the next solution. Thank you for listening. I look forward to your questions, and I'm pleased to hand it over to Joe.
All right. Hi, everyone. All right. We all good? On the screen share? Great. Okay. So I'm Joe Marini. I'm the CEO and founder of Mothership Materials. Mothership Materials is building the next generation Standard Oil that's made to power biomanufacturing with plants and not petroleum. And so I'm going to share a bit today about the problem that we solve in the industrial food waste space, how we use a first-of-a-kind technology to solve it. I'm going to give a quick case study in our first corporate customer, and then I'm going to talk about how recoverable grants are a really critical, strategic, and catalytic part of our current fundraising capital stack. So quick history lesson, right? In 1880, we had the second industrial revolution. And this is where we made petroleum and chemicals really fast, really cheap, really scalable. And what happened is we had massive industrial growth that decimated our environment, right? It also caused a lot of economic misalignment and community exploitation. But we are in now what is called the fourth industrial revolution, or the biomanufacturing revolution. And this is really profound because we have the technology and we have the science and the understanding of molecular structures to use things like sugars or proteins or lipids to power the biomanufacturing revolution, right? We're making things with plants and not petroleum. And not only would massive industrial growth here improve our health and environment, but there's also an opportunity to create economic alignment and new regenerative revenue opportunities in communities that have typically been excluded from that. And so a quick overview of what I mean when I say biomanufacturing, it is a massive, massive industrial opportunity. We're not talking about just making a shirt or just making maybe a new food in a bioreactor. We're talking about every bit of our material world, from the dyes in our food to our beauty to pharma to adhesives to plastics to the finish on your car. All can be made, and the technology is there to make it all with bio-based inputs and not petroleum, backed by hundreds of billions of funding, and it is all bottlenecked by the same problem. Companies are doing one of two things. They're investing in recovering their own critical molecules. Vertical integration doesn't work. It's the equivalent of mining their own crude oil. Or they're buying food competitive supplies. So they're literally diverting things from our food supply chain. In both of these cases, it's too expensive and it doesn't scale. And these feedstocks or these bio-based inputs can cost up to 80% of a total finished good, which is completely non-competitive with petroleum-based or conventional-based products. It's never going to scale. And so we have a technology called Trace. We use physics and not chemistry. And essentially what happens is we have two pieces, a biologic piece and this sort of stack low RPM centrifuge piece. It actually originated in medical therapeutics, so it's a cross-functional technical transfer. And what happens is we can capture these molecules from industrial food and waste sources very fast, very efficient, and at very low cost. And essentially what happens is it works like a giant molecular coin sorter. So when you go to the grocery store and like you dump all your coins in and like the pennies and the nickels and the quarters all come out in their own sort of sleeve, that's what this is. We put our industrial waste in the top, in this case, apple pomace. The capture particle grabs onto the molecule that we designed it to grab. It moves through this geometry and this sort of centrifuge stack that spins at a very low rate, and then everything comes out in its own lane. And what happens is we can tune these outputs, and we can assign them to their own price and their own buyer. So 1 thing in, 5 things out is really economically lucrative to get that cost down. The whole unlock here, though, is our microfactory. Because we use physics and not chemistry, because we're not adding all these chemicals, because we're not using heat, we could build very, very low cost hardware that is modular and works like Legos, can copy paste anywhere in the world, and can deploy in weeks instead of months. So instead of $150 million and a couple years, we're looking at $50,000 in a couple weeks. And because we know that partnerships are the way to go when we're doing new big things, Rebuild Manufacturing is our engineering partner. They're based in Rochester, New York. You might know them. They built the Slate truck, which was the first modular EV built in the US under $25,000. And so they could take us from 1 to 10 to 1,000 and are responsible for helping our engineering here. And that same system that I just talked about, that same waste in, feedstock out in a modular microfactory, works for every farmer, grower, and food processor with any waste stream anywhere in the world, from big industrial farms all the way down to some cocoa farmers that we're working with in Africa right now. So here's a quick case study. We already have a contract with AB InBev. It's our first commercial contract. We picked brewer spent grain because it's everywhere and we can build a repeatable business anywhere in the world. Right now, this brewery does 150,000 tons of spent grain every year. Right now, it's getting trucked away for feed. Brewery makes about $4 million. With Mothership, this first industrial deployment goes in February 2026. We turn that into glucose for precision fermentation. So it goes into the bioreactor, still goes to protein for feed, and lipids for personal care. And we flip that 4 million into 7.5 for the brewery and 12 million for Mothership. And so the business model looks like that over and over and over again. Waste goes in, we process it, feedstock goes out. Buyers pay us for the feedstock and we revenue share back to the waste supplier. And our pipeline is huge. We are in a moment of incredible and explosive growth. That first contract with AB InBev is worth $30 million. And we are at a place where we've done all the pilot validation previously. And so we are ready to install those first industrial units. We have a 100 million inbound pipeline from the largest companies in the world that want us to also implement next at their location and with their feedstock. And on the buy side, it is just as exciting. We just released our first product. It's called Microbe Munch. There's a quick 30-second video on our website. It's the first sugar made to feed microbes and not people. We made it like a little kid's cereal with like microbes like hopped up on sugar. The demand exceeded our projected capacity to supply in the first 3 days after launch. We have a MOU for our first textile buyer for cellulose, and proteins are the basis of polymer creation. And so we are currently looking at who is going to be basically the AB InBev of polymers as we move into that space. This is my team. Dr. Agnes Ostafin is the creator of all this technology. Dr. Amanda Parks is our CTO and working with Rebuilds. Just to give a sense of what scale looks like for us, and we talk about Lego systems and step repeat, the commercial inflection point here is quite explosive. And so we are currently in that Q1 2026 where we're getting those first units out of the door. And once we sort of hit that Q2 2027 point where there are enough units in the world generating enough revenue repeatedly, we get to move really quickly from there, right? And really sort of hit that, that catalytic moment where we start doing this in a very competitive way. And there's a lot of words on this slide. I apologize for this in advance, but as my last slide.
Oh, sorry, may I pause you for just one sec?
Yeah,
Could you zoom out your screen? I feel like we're cutting out a piece on the right. So if you
Oh,
Zoom out just a little bit. We'll be able to see. Perfect. Thank
can you
you.
see this?
Carry
Oh,
on. Yep.
okay, there you go, no problem. And I can even like, well, maybe move it over. No, it's okay. Anyway, a lot of text on this slide.
Sorry, we lost it again. Where you had earlier was perfect.
Oh, I didn't even move it. That's so weird. How about, what if I just do this? There?
Looks
You good?
great. Looks great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay. So recoverable grants for us, the use of funds here, if any of you have ever heard of, like, I think we mentioned it earlier, a first of a kind technology. So we have, proven technology, we have signed contracts, we're building our first industrial units with a path to scale. But traditional venture capital doesn't fund this. And project-based financing doesn't fund this. And so this type of recoverable grant is actually really important. You may have heard it called the Valley of Death, that startups sort of face between that pilot and commercial scale. And so this is the classic gap where the risk is too high for VCs and it's too early for finance. And recoverable grants are really critical to companies, the success of companies like ours that are sort of doing this first of a kind deployment. For us specifically, we are looking at our current capital stack has about 500,000 of recoverable grants earmarked in there, specifically to unlock 30 million in that near-term committed revenue, validate the platform up to that 100 million pipeline, and then unlock, obviously, project financing eligibility to make us eligible for future growth. I don't know why I couldn't say that word just now. And that's it. And maybe the last thing I'll say is this also helps to do something that's really important to us, right? So when we talk about economic growth, it also helps us lock in those revenue return models to make sure that as we're able to unlock new economies, that wealth and that economic opportunity is distributed in a symmetrical and ethical way. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Joe. We're gonna take a few minutes to go through questions. Please keep them coming within the Q&A section. I see some already sort of within the chat, within the Q&A. This one I think is for Ertharin. What is the minimum amount for the minimum grant amount for the Good Food Opportunity Fund? And what is the term? How long is the recoverable grant for?
Thank you very much. The minimum amount is $100,000, and the recoverable grant fund to give us the opportunity to recycle is 5 years.
Thank you, Ertharin. I think this question is targeted broadly to folks working within the food recycling space. So feel free to jump in, whoever thinks they're most closest to the answer. This one's from Sue. Why is there not more focus on stabilizing food byproducts as a simple ingredient directly for human consumption?
Yeah, in the context of the work that Mothership Materials is doing, that's part of it. There are times when the kind of sorting that we do can be directly put into food, specifically around proteins. There's a lot of opportunity here for recoverable proteins that can then be used more broadly as a protein category and protein isolates. For us as a company, oftentimes the feedstocks that we use go to create food in production in different ways, like the glucose into precision fermentation, or cellulose, right, into fillers and different things. So we actually do touch a lot of the food category by creating sort of tunable molecules that are purified in a way that makes them, consumable at scale. And we find that a lot of times that is a significant gap where there are some the flexibility that we can do here at scale is useful. I think we have a pretty broad way that we look at valorization of industrial food waste.
Thank you, Joe. And the next question was for you as well. Just confirming, is Mothership a for-profit entity or a non-profit entity?
No, we're a for-profit entity. We're a Delaware C Corp public benefit corporation.
Thank you. Just give a couple of minutes to see if more questions are coming in. All right. it seems as though we are ready to wrap up. Thank you so much to all the, sorry, I'm going to check just one more second. All right, we do have one more question before we wrap up. How is food cycle different from mill? If you could take that one, Joe.
Oh, that one's for me. So the
sorry.
technology is very similar. They're both essentially grinding and dehydrating food scraps and generating a valuable byproduct. The differences, I would say, are simply in the design of the machine, but ultimately we're working towards the same goal of keeping household food waste out of landfills and delivering a higher and more beneficial use of those nutrients.
Thank you, Christina. Well, I thank you. I thank all our speakers for joining us today. These case studies for recoverable grants have really been an incredible support to sort of the technical walkthrough of what a recoverable grant is. This is really you guys highlighting what it can do on ground. I also want to thank all of the attendees who engaged with all of the content and who asked us really sort of important questions. I will highlight that we have 2 more webinars within this series coming up the next week and the week after. Those will be focused on capital intermediation as well as bridge financing. We hope you'll join us for those 2 as well. Before you leave, we ask that you please take a moment to give us feedback via the polls that will pop up momentarily. And just a reminder that the recording for this session, as well as the slides and context for all of the speakers that we had today will be shared following this webinar. Thank you very much, everyone.